Hello and welcome to Pickle TV. I'm your host, Gary Leland. Now, if you found our show on Facebook or YouTube or another video sharing site, please check out my website at pickle.tv. It's the place you will find all the videos I'm going to record from all the conferences I'm going to attend. Now, if you like what I'm doing, and by that I mean if you like me bringing you these conferences free, please tell your friend about Pickle TV. Now, on this episode, I'm bringing you another pair of speakers from the Emerging Tech Conference that was held in Dallas, Texas during June of 2012. Well, actually, it was Grapevine, but Dallas is close enough. If you're not familiar with the Emerging Tech Conference, you really need to check out their website at etcdallas.com. Now, in this episode, I'm going to bring in Nicholas Thomas and Darren Matheny, and their presentation is Lean Startup Techniques Every Business Owner Can Use. Let's watch it now.
Hey guys, thanks for showing up. First of all, we have nothing to sell. We're in the software business primarily. We were asked to speak today. Both Nick and I love encouraging entrepreneurship. We love experimentation. We love sort of the sport of business. I personally try to advise as many people who will listen to me, which surprisingly has been a few over the years. But that's kind of ultimately what we hope to provide today is whether you have your own business or whether you advise other businesses or whether you're thinking about starting a business, we want to provide you with some tips and tricks that you can use to launch new products, launch new business with a minimum amount of risk. A lot of these are actual case studies that we've done. And basically, we hope to provide as much value as possible. You'll have to excuse us. I don't do a lot of public speaking, but we're hoping we can overcome that by providing a lot of value. So with that, you might be wondering, who are these guys? Like I said, I'm Darren Matheny. I founded Docudesk, which is a PDF software company, back in 2003, out of the office out of my house. And by definition, I had to use lean startup techniques because I didn't have a whole lot of cash to work with. So I used a few techniques here and there and was able to grow the business to today. It's a multi-million-dollar software business. So we've done okay, and Nick's been an integral part of that over the years. You might think that, being a nerd and a software guy, I would credit, my superior intellect or my coding skills with our success. But ultimately, it was a succession of businesses. I always, as a kid, was very entrepreneurial. I had a lot of little businesses. A lot of them succeeded and a lot of them failed. By definition, they were all lean because I didn't have any money to waste on not being lean. But some of the other lessons I learned was from that and from working at this place. While I was going to college, I worked in an appliance store. And you might not think that there's a lot of lessons you could learn there that you could take over to a technology business or any business for that matter. But the skill of being able to deal with customers, to be able to talk with people and listen to their wants and needs and find a solution that you offer that can fit those needs is important to any business. It doesn't matter whether you sell software or services or what it is. And too many people, especially in the tech world, they have a dim view of sales and marketing. I mean, ultimately, if you don't have a customer, you don't have a business. So that's kind of that's a recurring theme that we're going to talk about today. And with that, I will introduce Nick. Nick is an essential part of our day-to-day operations. He's been with us since 2007. Smart guy, essential to marketing, and all around good dude. Nick.
I'm Nick Thomas. I started out as a computer geek, and I started coding when I was a kid, and I did a couple of years of computer science in college, and I kind of got out of that. The bubble was bursting right when I was a sophomore in college, first tech bubble. So I decided, maybe need to look at something else, and right around the same time I started managing my friend's band. I was qualified because I knew everybody in the band and I had a cell phone. I put together a plan. I really just looked at what the big guys were doing with the signed acts that were on major labels were doing, and I just kind of tried to replicate that. So put together a plan. Within a few months, I got in the band some press coverage. We were on radio stations. It's tough to get radio play in the United States, but I had us on the radio in Germany and Israel and some places worldwide. But we started generating a lot of buzz online and got the attention of some major record labels and had an offer from one, and I was negotiating a record contract at 19 because of all the buzz that I'd come about. It only took 3 months. So there's actually a lot of parallels between being in a band and managing a band and being in a software startup. We've gone through a couple of episodes where we've had to name products and do a few things, and I'm like, man, if you haven't been through a process of naming a band, it's not anything. It's a lot different than being in a startup, but it was a hardcore metal act. You don't always look as good moshing as you think you do. The takeaways for me, the things that I learned was to look at what other people did, especially people that had money and resources, and try to find a way to do that in a lean way so you can do it with less resources and less money. It's on to you. Pass it back to Darren.
Traditionally, whether you're starting up a software or tech startup, or whether you're maybe it's a mom and pop flower shop, the traditional way of going about it is, you're going to lease your storefront or strip center, your office space, maybe buy some equipment, do some build out. If you're in the software business, build a complex product. Even if you're just a writer or you are a creator, you make videos, you create this thing that you think people will want. Maybe you spend years on it in development. Lots of capital, lots of risk is usually the way it goes. Unfortunately, most businesses fail, and that's really kind of a stark reality. So basically, there's a better way. Ultimately, we want to change the risk-reward matrix. And just like anything else, whether you're doing your retirement account or starting a business, generally speaking, the riskier endeavors have a higher payout, and the safer endeavors have a lower payout. So if we can do what we can do to increase the risk-reward benefit, then that's a good thing. Really, the formula is pretty simple, is to engage customers really early before you make a lot of investment, to not overextend yourself on an idea before you've tested it. Don't wait for perfection. There's in the lean startup community, which we'll talk more about later, there's a term minimum viable product. Who here has heard the term minimum viable product before? Okay, so you guys kind of know this. For those of you who haven't heard this, the idea is that a lot of people sort of wait for perfection, and they let the enemy be let the perfect be the enemy of the good, pardon me. And it can be very expensive. It can take a long time, and then ultimately you make something that nobody wants. So what we do internally now, because of lessons that we learned the hard way, is we like to get products out in front of customers early, to make them as lean as possible, and to encourage failure. Like I said, given my background, I've had a large number of mediocre successes and failures. All those things are great lessons learned, and if you can do those without completely overextending yourself and bankrupting your company, that's actually a great thing. And you can pivot from there, you can move on to bigger and better things, and fine-tune something into a marketable product. So basically look at my notes here real quick. Let's see here. Make sure I got the good stuff.
We don't do this a lot.
No, we don't. Okay. So like I said before, in the tech world especially, there's a lot of people that look down on marketers, and it's kind of interesting because there's a whole camp of people that are software nerds and startup guys that sort of turn their back on marketing guys. And then in that world, there's also these internet marketer guys. The copy blogger is actually kind of in that world. And there's a lot of other people too. And there's a lot of really great techniques. And there's a handful of people, a lot of them are already following the lean startup like some of you guys are, that are employing some of those techniques. Because ultimately, what lean startup really is, it's marketing ahead of product development. Because ultimately, if you build a product and nobody wants to buy it, then you don't have a business. You maybe have a hobby, but you don't have a business. So lean startup is essentially customer development, which is essentially putting the marketing first as a product development strategy, so that you work with the customers and you determine where the market demand is. So, as far as this goes, the history is full of examples of technologically superior products that lost because of bad marketing, or technologically inferior products that won because of good marketing. Microsoft's a good example. For anybody who still remembers what VCRs are, there's Betamax and VHS, and Betamax was Sony's standard, and it was way better, but the VHS, had the right marketing, the right price point, and the right partnership, and they won. So this gets on the lessons learned from us. Like Docudesk is a PDF software company. We had great success in desktop PDF software. Basically, we had something that was replacement for Adobe Acrobat, had some other products. We did really well with this. So early on, this is going back to about 2007 or 2008, we were working on a product called DocQ, and the idea was we wanted to just take the market on full tilt. We knew that web services were going to be the next big thing, and I was CEO, so I kind of have a little bit of culpability here, but we thought we knew everything. And so we spent probably upwards of $1 million in 2 years creating this awesome product. We were in stealth mode, we didn't tell anybody about it, and we just knew when it came out, it was just going to be a game changer, and it was going to completely blow everybody else out of the market. We were going to do signing, we were going to do document sharing, basically attacking 5 markets at once. And effectively, it was a big failure. It fell flat with customers. It's really hard to attack 5 different markets at once. It's even harder to make a product that does 5 big things like that well. So, lesson learned. We didn't realize at the same time, a guy named Eric Reese had a blog called Startups Lessons Learned, and he'd been experiencing kind of almost around the same timeline that we made mistakes. He'd been kind of realizing this reality too, that instead of creating this huge product, we should have spent a couple months on it and put it in the hands of customers. And just to give everybody kind of a background on this stuff doesn't just work for software startups. This could be whether you have a service idea, you have a physical product idea, you have an idea to open up an e-commerce website. It really doesn't matter. These techniques can be used for all of this to limit your risk and exposure. If you think back to the flower shop in the strip mall, if you think it might be a good idea to have a flower shop in a strip mall there's ways to sort of test the market in that area. There's analytics that are out there online that you could use to help determine whether that's a good place to go. So, Lean Startup Lessons Learned, great blog. He finally came out with a book to sort of encapsulate all these ideas. Recommended reading, great read. I've read it on Kindle like 1.5 times now, I think. This stuff goes back further though. Ultimately, big businesses have been doing test marketing on products for years. And that's effectively the same thing. Even big businesses know they're not going to go ahead and commit to some product and spend all the money to roll it out. Most of the smart ones, I guess HP is one of the ones that didn't quite take that lesson with their tablet computer, but usually even product companies, even, I know Dr. Pepper Snapple, I know people in their marketing department here in Dallas, and they test all sorts of things in different markets all over the country. There's some bizarre potato chip flavors for Lay's. I know another guy who works for them, and different cola flavors that Dr. Pepper Snapple does, and they test these things before they market them. Going back a little further from Eric Reese, this guy Steve Blank was in the Valley 15 years ago, let's say. He was working on for different startups, and he saw it over and over again. If these startups would get funded, they'd be in like super secret mode, making this awesome product, kind of like what we did, spending all this time and effort on it, ultimately to have it fail when it was released. So his experience was he went in front of some customers early on once, and he was talking to the customer like, well, there's these 10 things the product does, but if you just did these 2, we'd be really happy, and it would be a great product, and that's what we'd like. So he's like, hey, when? So he goes back to the founder CEO guy and said, hey, all they need is these 2 things. We can build this out. We got a customer. Everything's going. The CEO, being egotistical and full of himself, was like, hey, no, I have a vision for this product. This is what it is, and that's what it's going to be. So completely ignore the market, completely ignore the customer, and do so at your own peril. This right here is what I call a success. It was actually a failure. Nick and I worked on this. This is after our experience with DocQ, and it was sort of like our own, before we really were reading up on all of the Lean Startup stuff. We rolled this in 3 days. It was some of the functionality in that other product that we thought, hey, there might be a market here. So we spent $60 on a WordPress theme. We spent a couple days putting the materials together. And they were like, well, it kind of would work, but we don't really have a billing system in place. We don't really have a lot of the things that we think we always have to need to make this product work. So we said, well, hey, you know what? If we get the sales, we get the customers, we'll just do it for them, concierge service. And there's a lot of examples of that. So don't think that you need to have every little detail covered. If you're working on starting a business, there's some examples we're going to give later of guys that literally just throw up a web page and talk about what the product's going to be and get a huge following and determine, or they don't. It either works or it doesn't work. And they're able to determine this with almost no risk at all.
Fail fast is a mantra a lot.
You guys might be thinking, that's nice and all, good to hear about your failures, but how does that affect me? So I'll let Nick know the rest of this here.
There's never been a better time in history to launch a new business or to launch a new product in your company. There's so many tools out there in the market right now that you can take advantage of. Whereas even just a few years ago, if you wanted something like a billing system, like an online store, you had to do it ourselves. We had to do a lot ourselves just because it didn't exist anywhere in the market. So there's so many tools out there. You can really take on existing bigger businesses, make a big splash online, have a big presence online without having to spend a lot of money. So it's really easy. All you gotta do is take the first step. Even still, in all seriousness, it is easy. You can leverage the existing tools. There's fewer barriers to entry. The key takeaway is that you have no excuses. With a micro startup, you can start for under $300, and we'll show you some of the tools that you can use to do that today.
And some case studies as well.
And case studies. And the key thing is it's low risk and it's low capital. But if you follow the lean methodology, if you stay lean and you test your assumptions, you can find out before you invest, before you waste your time and money to build something that nobody cares about.
Right, Mom?
Come on in.
All right. So identifying the market is important whether you're getting into a new business or market or whether you're launching a new product. We made the example of the .q service that we had, and we tried to attack 5 different markets at once. Let's just say that you want to start a blog, or let's say that you want to write a book, or you want to start a niche website, or you want to start, let's say, an e-commerce site. If you want to start an e-commerce site, don't try to be Amazon from day one. That's kind of what we tried to do. Effectively, you need to focus, and there's a lot of great, I've attended a lot of the talks in this conference. Well, there's a lot of good info on this as far as trying to pick a niche. Ultimately, like take Copy Blogger, for example, it's copywriting and blogging, so there's a nexus of copywriting. This right here is talking about picking your, what your passion is, but effectively you can take the copywriting, blogging, and maybe internet marketing. So by picking the intersection of that, he was able to get up above the chatter and actually start ranking in the search engine, start getting attention because he had a focused message. And so while that's important for bloggers, it's also important for your product. Coming out of the gate, if you can come up with a focused product on a niche that you know and understand, you're gonna have a lot more chance for success. You're gonna have a lot better ability to utilize some of these lean tools like social media and SEO to your advantage, and also just traditional advertising as well. So for those of you who haven't been, we always like to encourage entrepreneurs. So, what's your passion? What's your skills? Where's the demand? We're going to talk a little bit about some demand tools. It's already been covered in a lot of the talks here in this conference really well. But yeah, there's as far as getting information now, there's never been a better time in history, as Nick alluded to get information and to be able to identify a hot market. And there's a market for everything, really. Seriously, there's some examples that one of the best examples I love is there's an ebook that the CEO, or I'm sorry, the director of business development for one of the top e-commerce affiliate sites, ClickBank. That's right. He was talking about one of his favorite stories. There's a guy who wrote a book about how to attract hummingbirds to your backyard. Okay, so what's the market for that? I'm like, okay, yeah, where's the punchline here? $500,000 in sales in 1 year, selling a book, an ebook about how to attract hummingbirds to your backyard. So, there's the internet marketer guys like to say,
who doesn't want hummingbirds in their backyard?
I actually had one the other day. I was like, wow, you don't see them very often.
It's something, so an ebook, it's something that's like, am I going to dedicate a few months or whatever to build and make an ebook about how to attract hummingbirds? I wouldn't know if I would be willing to do that. For $500K, obviously a lot of people would. So he put it out there, he floated it.
But creating a blog about hummingbirds first before you bother writing a book, good idea. This is some of the things we're going to talk about. And that's basically a good segue to building the conversation. That's you, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Does anybody know Tim Ferriss?
Yes.
Everybody read 4 Hour Work Week? He talks a lot about what he calls it the muses, and that's basically, we're trying to marry, like, if you have an existing business launching a new product, or if you don't have anything, launching a part-time small business. And Tim Ferriss calls the idea of something like selling a chicken hat or ebook about hummingbirds online, like your muse. And so 4-hour work week, I definitely would recommend that as well. You want to start the conversation online. You want to start people talking about this. There's a lot of really good social media people here, a lot of good people in town. Lisa Dooney, sitting in the back, was talking to us about her social media business. So we probably won't delve too far into everything, all the tools and tricks that you need there. But the key thing is that you want to at least start building your presence online. You can do it easily with your Facebook page, Tumblr blog, start tweeting, putting on YouTube tutorial videos. You don't even have a website to start. You can just start building conversation, building your online presence.
And the key point to that too is that don't put the cart in front of the horse. It's actually before you have a product. You've decided what market you want to go into. Now it's time to start the conversation. Become a part of that community if you're not already, and start gauging interest. And so these are some of the easy ways you can go. So with this, you don't even need a website. You can literally just set up a free Facebook page, a Tumblr blog, or any of these tools.
So one really cool, has anybody ever heard of LaunchRock before? Has anyone used LaunchRock?
Try.
Yeah, tried it, any success, or what do you think?
I saw someone else that did with success.
Yeah.
So I had something that I was kind of thinking about
Yeah.
marketing, and I got in the back of the dashboard.
Yeah.
But I just got a little frustrated.
It's a little bit, yeah, we had
It is
some
a
problems
little
with that too.
tricky, but I did this one actually.
Yeah.
It was not totally intuitive. We have used it a couple. So this is a startup we're working on right now. We're not doing the stealth mode thing, but it'll be ready in a couple weeks. Social publishing platform, but effectively, Nick, to a great effect, used the tools in LaunchRock as part of one of our existing campaigns. They have great, and this isn't showing it right now, but they have great social media integration. You can actually send people to that page, collect emails, and see every time somebody that you can track the likes on Facebook and track it back to an original person who liked it originally. So there's a good set of analytics that you can do with that.
Yeah, we should probably back up. For everybody that doesn't know what LaunchRock is, this is a page that you can build when you don't have anything, when you have kind of an idea. Or anything, you need a logo, you don't even need hosting, they can host it for you. And it's basically, you can build a splash page to start gauging interest. You can start collecting email addresses. You can interact with your customers. You can start putting stuff out socially. And you basically just put it up there just to see if anyone cares. You can put this on forums, you can put it on Reddit and just say, hey, I'm building this, does anyone care about this? There's actually companies that have gotten funded with nothing more than a LaunchRock page.
There's one example I'd like to bring up. There's a story of a kid, it's been a couple years ago in the UK, 15 or 16 years old, living with his parents, and he decided to become a Mac app developer. And he tried to make a few apps to no success, tried AdWords, which by the way is really tough these days for a lot of, especially for software. Had no success at all. So he had participated in a couple of these bundles. So there's there's some bundles deals for Mac, like software bundles. The developers generally get about 25 cents or $1 at the most each time when the bundle sells. So he was like, it'd be great if there was a bundle that was a little bit more fair to the developers. And I wonder if anybody would be interested in that. Plus, the guys that make the bundles, they make a bundle of cash because they're the ones that make all the profit. So this kid puts it up, he's like, well, I don't know if it would work or not. He effectively put up his own LaunchRock page before LaunchRock existed, but it took him a couple hours one night to put it together and put the pitch together. He just seeded a few developer forums and said, hey guys, would you be interested in this? And it had an email collection form like this. He got thousands of people that were interested. And he realized, wow, this is kind of a business. And so literally, you talk about lean startup. He identified a market, identified a business for a few hours worth of work. The kid made, what, $300,000 was it? He made $300,000 his first year, and he's a teenage kid with his parents. So, great example, but that's a really good lean example of a similar LaunchRock type of strategy.
Yeah, so while you're still building your presence online, once you've made a page like that, he probably wouldn't have made it if he hadn't started spreading the buzz about it. You can get a logo for $5, and we'll show you a little bit how to do that later. You can get a domain for $5. Get your WordPress started for $5. This is
So if you have a bigger idea that you can't really encapsulate that, or if you just are getting into a market and you want to basically figure out what the market's about, maybe try to build a following so that you have customers built in when you get going, the best option would obviously be WordPress, and there's like a ton of awesome information that's gone on this weekend about WordPress. So we don't really go into a whole lot of detail except to say there's no excuse. I mean, we're talking like $5 for that, $5 for the domain. There's a number of hosting providers.
A lot of these hosts, you can do a one-click install, so it actually is not that technical. I can set one up in a couple of hours, and I'm not sharpest tool in the shed when it comes to technology anymore. But with Woo Themes and Theme Forest, kind of like we did with the desk press site that we
You
showed
got to mention
earlier.
Studio Press.
And Studio Press, Copy Blogger sponsored the event. But you can get a whole theme for $35 that actually looks really professional. You can do a one-click install. It's actually not that bad. When you're trying to move beyond just the Tumblr blog, just the Facebook page, that's how you do it. But you want to start engaging and getting followers. You want to start building your email list. OnTruck is really great for this. Email is great. We'll talk about that a lot later when we get into the email marketing. But MailChimp has a really good plugin for WordPress, and it's free for 2012.
12, yeah, so 2,000, correct.
12,000
a month.
Yeah, so, but you want to start getting your followers on Twitter, Facebook, Google+. You want to actually reach out and get into the forums. You want to people start talking about you, and you also want to start building your own brand. You want to start becoming an expert. So that's that. Kickstarter. Has anybody ever heard of Kickstarter?
Yeah.
Anyone ever used it? Donated? Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. It actually is pretty fun. Kickstarter, for those of you that don't know, it's a way that you can float an idea, kind of like OnTruck, but some of them have prototypes, some of them just have ideas. You put together kind of a presentation. You want to sell your idea somehow. Some people just have images, or some people have videos.
The better the videos and the imagery, obviously, the more donation, or the more people are going to crowdfund this effectively. But
It's a way for guys like us that aren't institutional investors to put money towards a project that you think is interesting, something that you might be a customer, something that you want to see happen. So
this is the answer for you guys that might have a really big grand idea that involves manufacturing something, or something that there's just no way to get around the capital for. What better way? It's an amazing deal, and if you haven't been to launchrock.com, check it out. There's like so many cool things. I'll let you follow up on some of the
Kickstarter, yeah, Kickstarter is really fun. We were trying to work on this last night. We ended up just getting totally distracted and just looking at all the cool projects that we can fund. This came out before the Jobs Act. The Jobs Act is a really cool new thing that Congress passed, and that's a way that actually is actual funding for non-institutional investors. The way that Kickstarter does it is, it's kind of like a donation. It's kind of like when you donate to KPRA or something, you get a gift. So a lot of times they'll promise, like if you were going to donate to the watch, they would promise that you get a watch. If you're going to donate to an album, a record album, or a movie, a lot of times they just give you like a free gift somehow. But it's basically you're just sort of showing support. So this watch, they got actually $10 million in funding. From every
It's actually funding, but it says funding successful. You'll see some projects on there that haven't gotten their money yet. That's money in the bank that these guys got. And I mean, imagine trying to raise $10 million and the other thing, they didn't give away their company. I mean, they've got it all. So it's an amazing thing.
So we wanted to find somebody local, and we found, I think these guys are local, and they're trying to make math edgy. 28K.
Funded for today. That's not, that actually happened, and it's just a book about math. Crazy. There's a lot of examples like that, though. And if you go down to like sub $10,000, there's an amazing number of examples. So if you've got some idea that definitely is going to take capital to get started, great way to do it, and you're not actually giving away anything.
So where we're at now, we found your market, you identified the market, and you started to build your online presence. So I'm going to turn it back over to Darren and open for business.
Let's see here.
We do this all the time.
Yeah, we do this all the time. We talked about setting up the WordPress site. There's also an amazing number of e-commerce tools now that you can literally roll out immediately. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the more obvious ones. A lot of app developers have had great success in the App Store, like Apple's App Store. Android has a marketplace. Those are pretty good. You still have to do some optimization in there, but you get a lot of exposure, and you have to cut Google, or you have to cut either Google or Apple in 30%. So that's kind of one of the downsides of that. For everybody who's not a software geek, there is Newsstand now, and there's some things happening there. Some automated app generation apps where you can create your own magazine and actually get syndication and subscriptions through the Apple Newsstand. So if you've got an iPad, check it out. It comes like by default on the home page of iOS, and effectively, if you create a magazine through there, and it has to be an app, but there's tools to create that pretty easily. You can actually get a recurring subscription revenue through that. So there's some pretty interesting things there. Obviously eBay, if you're selling goods, eBay is still a great place. There's a lot of eBay millionaires. There's a lot of businesses that do hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in eBay. I've met a few of them. So it's still very valid. I personally don't like all the fees and stuff, but it's a real easy way to get started. And when we talk about these lean startup principles, if you have an idea, if you've made a couple prototype products, you can absolutely throw them up on eBay. I mean, there's literally no bar to entry, and see if they sell. I mean, there's no better test than the marketplace. Amazon is another thing. A lot of people don't realize you can publish your own ebook now on Amazon. They have a create space. I think they acquired them. It's part of Amazon now, or affiliated. But basically, you can publish ebooks, you can publish video, and you can also publish music or audio through that platform. So it gives you, if you're publishing a book, it gives you the ID, what is it called, the ID number, ISBN, whatever, yeah. But it automates the whole process and even formats it for ebook format. So literally, you can self-publish if you're an author. If you are producing some kind of video or some sort of course, you can put it on video and publish it through Amazon. There's no better place. If you talk about eBay and Amazon, this is where buyers are coming. As far as eBay goes, it's one of the top search engines for buyers. It's like it's in the top 3 when people are looking to buy. A lot of them are on eBay. So as a small, lean startup, it makes sense to go where the business is, go where the customers are, go where there's buyers. And the Amazon Marketplace and the Create Space make it super easy to go there. If you're selling, if you want to start an e-commerce business with some niche products, you can absolutely put it in through Amazon Marketplace. People can buy it through Amazon. They can log in with Amazon. They can even pay via Amazon. And then you do the fulfillment, you do the shipping, and you get paid. Well, obviously, Amazon gets their cut, but they're bringing you the eyeballs. They're bringing you the customer. Sure.
You can actually do fulfillment. It's called Fulfillment by Amazon.
Yeah. We're going to get to that later, actually. That's another lean technique that some, especially people that are doing e-commerce and doing shipping, and I'll bring up a case study that one of my friends that was doing the business, and he was actually involved. He was actually having people who bought a truck, and he's like having people go pick up his inventory, bring it back to his house, put it in boxes, ship it, and now everything's being drop shipped from suppliers all over the country. The customers are happier. He saved a ton of money. It's streamlined his business. So yeah, that's absolutely something you can do too. I forgot about that. That's a good point.
It's probably worth noting though that you're basically selling it wholesale though if you do that.
As far as what?
Amazon.
It depends on what you're selling.
If it's a product, where they're doing fulfillment.
Essentially, but that's where we get back to picking the niche, okay? So if you're doing something that everybody else is doing, then you're commoditized. And you're gonna basically be competing against them as far as, I know Amazon's gonna take their cut, but there's still profit to be made. Like for instance, with one of the case studies I'm gonna bring up, they're selling some stuff, they buy it at quote unquote, like below wholesale, I guess, but they're still able to make a profit pushing products through Amazon. But the idea though is that maybe bringing this up isn't necessarily, I totally think you should control your own traffic, control your own destiny, have your own e-commerce site. We're gonna talk about that. But if you're trying to test whether a product has validity, you wanna find out if there's a market, it's not a bad place to start. It's a lot better than spending a lot of time building out your own e-commerce site if you're trying out, if you're testing something out. Another thing too is Amazon has a lot of great, if you look at what's hot in Amazon and try to sort, and you can get a lot of intelligence from looking at Amazon and looking what's selling. But the coolest thing about this is the Create Space, because I was installing the video on demand from Amazon, the Prime Video on my PS3, and it's actually pretty cool. I have Netflix too, but there's like some videos you can't get there. The biggest thing that I noticed is that there's indie videos, not just indie like pictures, but we're talking about like how-to videos that are obviously produced by a very small company that are showing up on video on demand. So you can actually get distribution onto people's set tops, into the living rooms of people through the service, which is pretty amazing. It's the first time I've ever seen anything like that. And you can actually make revenue on it.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
With video on demand, is
Yeah.
that the one that you guys think is the best right now? Because I've been toying with that for years.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best. It's kind of cool. If you already have Amazon Prime, I'm not pitching Amazon, but like it's from a consumer standpoint,
Nice.
Amazon Prime isn't a bad deal, and you get a lot of videos for free and HD and stuff. It's not bad. It's pretty good.
No, I mean as far as
For selling?
Yeah, for selling.
Oh, I don't know if that's the best platform, but it's the first, and maybe I'm not looking everywhere, but it was the first time that I had noticed small companies that were just basically selling how-to training videos showing up on a set-top box in an easy way. And I know you can do some of that through Apple, but I'm not exactly, this just looks like a pretty interesting platform. I would investigate all options. That's not really our specialty, but it's just something that's kind of cool and kind of new, especially from an author standpoint. I mean, publishing, being able to self-publish is a pretty big deal. As far as creating a storefront, and to answer your question, I would absolutely sell through my own storefront, no doubt. The idea of using Amazon is if you have your own, if you're manufacturing a product, sure you're selling it wholesale, but you're going to be doing that anyway. So that makes sense. If you're buying and selling, you're doing arbitrage and you're buying something, it's going to be hard to make a good profit that way, but it might tell you what the demand is. It might give you a little bit of intelligence. It might be part of your path to a lean startup launch. On storefronts, the most simple thing would be obviously just put a PayPal button on your WordPress page or any web page. So there's really no bar to collecting money. It used to be you had to get a merchant account, you had to get some kind of payment gateway. Very complicated. I've been selling things on the internet since 1996. So, I mean, I go back way back when all that stuff was like pulling teeth. It was incredibly hard. Now it's just incredibly easy. There's also, besides PayPal, there's a lot of, like, if you're selling a digital product, there's a lot of digital fulfillment services that are just super easy. That just take minutes to set up. They'll integrate with PayPal, or if you step up to a merchant provider, eJunkie is one of them. It's kind of a little more old school, but I kind of recommend it for new people, especially if you have like a mini storefront. It works pretty well, little as $5. It works with PayPal, but it also works with Authorize.net. So if you just want to switch it over to a merchant provider, which is a better deal percentage-wise, you can do that. Or then if you want a little more, I kind of recommend Shopify. There's a few other ones that we're going to talk about, but basically, if you're looking to get into commerce, if you need to have a shopping cart, you need to collect money online. Shopify, you can do worse. It starts at about $29 a month, and I'll tell you a secret. If you ever use Shopify, if you call up their sales guy, you can negotiate to where they'll waive the percentage. So that's something they don't tell you, but they'll just like immediately, drop their guard.
Is anybody using Shopify? Yeah?
Yeah.
My girlfriend is for her.
Yeah. What do you think?
It's pretty cool. The cool thing with Shopify is you get a lot of different like plugins, apps that they do, and then if you want to do any like customizations, they actually have a developer section where you can hire developers outside of them, a third party who will help you to customize their site. But
Pretty cool.
she's been able. She's transacted quite a few products through the site.
Yeah.
It does work. Yeah.
One of the great things about it is it's managed. So even if you do let's say you launch a WordPress site in HostGator or Bluehost or one of those guys, and then you install a plugin to do a shopping cart, those plugins, they kind of work, but they generally require a little bit of expertise and configuration, and they break. And if it goes down, the worst thing in the world, because we have a high volume shopping cart, we do a lot of small sales all over the world, 24 hours a day. And when that thing goes down, you're just bleeding money, especially if you've got advertising going in it. So the last thing you want is your shopping cart not to work. So the good thing about having a managed service like this is that while there are the developer kind of sections, you can tweak the templates and all this, you don't have to, and they run it. So it's kind of going to work. They have an iPhone app. You can kind of watch your sales, which is a good sport, by the way. If you got sales coming in online, you're like, cool, look, another sale. So that's kind of cool. But it's easy. It's the reason I recommend it. And go ahead.
Why would they want to waive the fees? I mean, what's the position?
Well, don't tell them I told you that. I'm just saying.
But I mean, why? I'm just curious.
Well, everything's open to negotiation, and that's the mistake a lot of people make, especially growing up in the U.S., is people don't barter, they don't ask. I mean, it doesn't matter who the vendor is. I always ask for a better deal. And if you're talking to a sales guy, these guys generally, they'll fold, like a cheap suit and give you a better deal. Especially if they can't handle you and you keep blowing them off.
I don't think he means like completely waive, but they'll just get a better deal.
They'll waive. They may not do this. They'll say, hey, my friend told me, okay, you guys would waive the fee if we just pay the $59 a month plan or something like that. Maybe it's the $39. So you can ask. It's like they say in the Bible, ask and you shall receive. So I always recommend it. It doesn't hurt. They're not going to refuse to sell to you for asking.
Well, it's kind of like with a car dealership.
Yes.
They have to sell enough, their sales have to be high.
Yeah.
They don't have to make profit off of every person as long as their numbers
Could
are
be
high.
SEO
So with
too.
the company too, they have to get as many customers as they can.
It's just part of the revenue model. Go ahead.
Why Shopify and not PayPal?
Well, Shopify has a complete shopping cart system. Now, PayPal offers something like that.
So I use PayPal, and I've never heard of this.
Okay, yeah. So, but do you have a full shopping cart with a lot of SKUs?
I have, it's an online boutique. closed?
Okay, yeah, so that's what we were gonna get to next. I was gonna mention that because it also has a CMS built in and it has that app store stuff. And so the idea is that if you wanna collect emails, you wanna do that, there's an app for that. It's not like it's going to plug into WordPress. There's like literally like no technical expertise involved. You go click and it's done. And so with the Shopify store, it provides a CMS or blog type engine, and you can click one button and install something for MailChimp, which is free for like 2,000 people, which like for any small business, usually it's good enough. And so literally it's like click, 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 I'm done, I've got a store. That's the reason why I recommend it. It's just, if you're more advanced, and this is what we're gonna talk here, PayPal bought a company, so now they have a system like that. There's BigCommerce. Magento's really good if you've got a lot of SKUs. It does really well for SEO, and there's a good community of experts that know Magento really well. They can do SEO for you. You can go on Elance or Odesk, that kind of thing, and find people. And then if you're like us and you're a nerd and you want to have, or you have some kind of recurring service that you want to provide, Chargeify, and there's another one, Recurly, I think.
Yeah,
Recurly. There's services now. We had to build all this stuff ourselves, and it took forever. And it's like this terrible mess on the back end that we always have to deal with. Because it doesn't face customers, we sort of let it be sort of messy, and it causes all sorts of headaches. And if they had Chargeify today, in fact, what we're working on porting our stuff over to that, it makes everything easy. It gives you all these unbelievable analytics about like, people that are dropping off of your recurring billing and this and that. You can also, going back to PayPal is like the easiest way to do a recurring plan. So you can, if you've got some information product or you want to sell basically like a club where it's a monthly recurring deal, PayPal's a great way to do that. And there's also WordPress plugins that allow you to have a members only area. So that's another way that you can get going. So, maybe, all right. So when it comes to lean marketing, we basically on AdWords is how we kind of built Docudesk. We've had more than 1 billion impressions. We kind of checked the numbers here this morning. Like 1.3 billion impressions, about 16 million clicks. And we've been profitable on that for a long time, although it's getting tougher. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of noise out there. But basically, that's with AdWords, and also Bing has Ad Center as well that also runs on Yahoo. But basically, one of the lean ways of advertising, one of the coolest things ever, is being able to put up inexpensive ads online and getting immediate measurable results. And this is very, this can fold into your lean strategy very well. I worked on starting this PDF product probably in 2001, 2002 in my spare time, and I was like, how am I going to sell this? How am I going to, as like a little guy, how am I going to go up and compete against Adobe, right, selling a product? And I remember, I saw this guy on TV one night. I think I'd been at the bar or something, and I came home and was like, who is this clown? And he kept going on about, place tiny classified ads. And so the strategy is you basically, find a bunch of dudes, and I never bought his course, by the way. But I was kind of listening because, I think I had a few beers at the time. And so he was talking about tiny classified ads. You put them in, you test it in 1 or 2 papers. You test your headline, you test your offer, and you track them. So when people send back in their it says, P.O. Box, whatever, Department E. It's just an old school way of tracking stuff. And so then you find, well, hey, that little ad that I spent $20 on, that worked. So I put it in the Kansas Tribune or whatever. I'll put it on every little small newspaper all over the country. So the theory pretty much works. I mean, the messenger, I think that guy actually died in jail. It's kind of sad. But, basically, his latest thing, he was scamming all these people, and the feds busted him and stuff. So I guess what we're saying is, don't use this for evil. Don't turn to the dark side. It could actually be used that way. But ultimately, it wasn't his stuff, okay? There's a guy named Claude Hopkins, wrote a book in 1923 called Scientific Advertising. That's where all that stuff comes from. I mean, he invented the risk-free offer, the money-back guarantee, tracking headlines and ads. He was a copywriter, but also he just applied sort of scientific testing principles to advertising. There's nothing leaner than this technique, because basically you can test anything. You can test ideas. Like I said, we built our business on this. I basically started running ads, and effectively I put together 3 ads that I thought would work. And I ran them, and literally within a couple days, I had statistics. I could see it. You can track with Google. At the time, I don't think you could. I wrote a little script to do it, but nowadays, you don't have to be a nerd to do it. It's all built in. You can tie in Google Analytics and go a step further. It's all free. So you know how many times the ad showed. You know how many people are clicking on the ad. You know of the people that clicked on the ad and went to your site, how many of them converted and bought. So So you can literally test offers. And to get back to the kid that put up the site talking about his like idea that he hadn't quite launched, I know of people that have done, now we haven't really done this, I mean, we did this to the site that we showed you that didn't work out, but we bought traffic, we sent it to that site, we actually had something to sell to people, and we determined it wasn't gonna work. But you could do that without even having the product. You could literally get people to put their email address in and sign up for a product. And you can go, well, I got 20,000 people, or you don't want to do that big of a test. Let's say our tests are usually kind of bigger, but maybe 1,000 people signed up, or 500 people signed up out of X number, or it could even be 100. But you can get statistically significant data this way. You can do it very easy. He mentioned Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss picked the name of his book, which is a great book, by the way. There's a lot of lean techniques in there. Fulfillment's talked about a lot of things because he had a sort of a physical business where he was shipping supplements. But he picked the name for that book, The 4-Hour Workweek. It's kind of like the name you picked for this session. Lean startup techniques any business could use. I guess it was decent because we got a pretty decent showing, and who are these guys, right? It has to be more of the headline than anything else. Of course, we have to keep y'all here now, which is our problem. But and that's kind of your problem too. Test the headline, and then what you have to back it up with, it has to be good content or it won't work. So Tim Ferriss did that. He actually placed Google ads, just like we're talking about. He placed AdWords ads and determined what would be the best. He determined what the click-through rates and everything on all these different headlines. And that's where the 4-Hour Workweek title for the book came from. He went on to be a New York Times bestseller. And he almost self-published the thing. He literally did all the promotion himself. Is there any questions about like analytics or AdWords or anything like that? I'm trying to move on a little bit.
I was talking to one of the Google AdWords guys like last week, and he was talking about using YouTube. It's 25 to 50 cents per click. He's saying that the AdWords realm is getting a little competitive, where you're talking about $10 to $15 per click.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you've had any like.
We've done that.
Yeah.
And there's yesterday, Jeremy, I don't know if you saw the talk he gave, which was really good. He's like an expert on it. I would follow, I think he's got a site. I would follow some of the stuff he said. I've done it quite a bit, but he's really kicked some butt, in that realm. Here's what I'll tell you. There's two types of marketing. There's tapping into existing demand, which this type of advertising is great for. So if I go, hey, I can find all these people that are looking. If I'm looking for, in my business, a PDF creator, or if like I'm a plumber, it's like I'm looking for, a Grapevine, Texas plumber, and I can tag into that, and I can basically tap into that existing demand of people that are going out and searching for it. It's kind of like the Yellow Pages in a way. Okay. What I consider YouTube and display advertising is you're having to create demand, and that's a good thing, because if you can crack that nut, if you can do that, you can generate a lot more customers. You don't just have this limited pool of people that are searching for exactly what you offer. You basically can, this is where we talked about putting together a website. We talked about finding out what your niche, engaging your audience, okay? If you're providing content that your audience likes, and this is what we're gonna, actually, it's a great segue to the next slide. If you're providing that content, especially if you're providing it for free, then that's a good thing, and you can get those eyeballs. And so ultimately, when you talk about the YouTube advertising, Jeremy was talking about just using it to basically boost up the rankings of your videos, which is a great idea, because those page views you get from paying for those, and you can get them as low as he was doing like 5 cents per click on some of them, which is amazing, because he was using really broad terms. It's kind of it's a ground floor thing. They just started doing it not too long ago. But basically what you can do is, if you create a nice video, and it can't just be like a pitch fest, it can't just be like, hey, buy my stuff. It needs to be something valuable that your market would appreciate. And that kind of is a segue into what we're doing here with free. That's going to be
we have very little time left, so we wanted you guys to get a lot of value out of the presentation. Does anyone else have any questions about anything? We can certainly keep talking, but I think we're coming short on time. Yeah.
You mentioned the Job Act and the fact that you have a lot of investors.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I love the Kickstarter thing where you're basically getting a product or some kind of thing for your contribution. On the Job Act deal, I wasn't sure, but can you like basically have a bunch of people that actually get small ownership of the company?
Essentially, they used to have laws about who can invest in a company, and they were kind of obscure. Not everyone even knew that.
Well, it's very ticky-tacky. You can get in trouble. You could actually get in trouble with the SEC and stuff. I think it's 500 now.
It used to have to make $250,000 a year and have
or less than.
bank.
Yeah, there's a lot of they've stripped all that out and made it a lot easier to crowdfund I would, I'm not a lawyer.
Do you have?
But it's pretty cool. It really is. It's going to make the sites like Kickstarter more common. It's going to be a little different. The great thing about Kickstarter, though, is that these people, and I know some of you have done that, and some people are so passionate about wanting something, they're willing to just give you the money, with the promise that you're going to do it, which is great because you're not giving away any equity in your business. Which, giving away equity can be a good thing if you get good advice for it, but a lot of times that doesn't happen from what I've seen with other people that have taken investment. And a lot of times the investor's goals are not yours. So the idea of having this sort of like donation-based deal on Kickstarter is pretty amazing. If you can pull it off, it really gets back though, is that before I did the Kickstarter, I would do some of these other techniques. I try to start blogging, I try to start engaging the audience, try to figure out if what you're talking about is something that resonates with people. And if you do, then spend some time to put together a nice video and try to really pitch it really well. And you can try it on Kickstarter. It's something that requires capital investment.
The cool thing about the Jobs Act is that, like Kickstarter, you are making a donation, essentially you get a gift. With the Jobs Act, there's probably going to be Kickstarter-type clones, competitors, where you could actually get a stake in the company. So instead of just supporting it, instead of getting a free gift, out of the kindness of your heart, you can actually invest in something that sounds cool.
So there's a local crowdfunding group on Meetup that's
really?
monitoring all that legislation to help people figure that stuff out.
That's also actual physical meetup?
Yeah, sort of crowdfunding on it.
Might have to check that out. That sounds pretty cool.
I was thinking it comes out, it becomes more active in like August or later this year.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe 5,000 owners or something. It's like micro.
The limitations on the number of investors?
Yeah, I'll check out the meetup group. I just wanted to get some more information.
Yeah, they're doing they're monitoring all the legislation and all the legalities, and some of it you can do now, but most of it you still gotta wait to be able to get a piece of the pie as an owner.
So I had a couple of
Question?
I had a couple of like test use cases to show you this stuff works. This is a neighbor of mine. We basically crowdsourced per logo for $200 on 99 Designs. There's also CrowdSpring. There's a good trick on that, by the way, too. If you do a contest on there, and especially if you're on the lower rung, like $200, $250 contest, if you go to all the other contests that are public and you basically you can message all of the artists, find the ones that are the really cool designs that bidded on lower bid contests like yours, send them a message, I really love your stuff, check out my contest, and you'll get like way better results. You'll get like twice as many submissions. That's a cool trick that nobody really does. But we did that for her. It wasn't my choice of logo. She really dug it. And then that's a Shopify theme. And it was all plugged in there. She also has a little bit of a About Us and blog page all in one. So it was easy for her. So we're talking $200 for a logo. We're talking she got some business cards for $20 to have that on there. And she did this. And so she got live. And the first thing we did is we were like, hey, let's go ahead and buy some AdWords traffic and see what we can do. I mean, we're in it for about $300. So we tried jewelry, apparently. Go figure. It's like high cost clicks. And she's selling, handmade cheap jewelry for like $30. It's made out of like an alloy and all this kind of stuff. So it's designed for, I'm a soccer mom and have the team numbers and all that kind of stuff. So you can't really compete there. And so then I'm thinking, well, the next thing is a lot of people kind of discount social media. This is an example of how you can use social media. Talk about lean techniques. So she was sending emails to people that got the designs, and she just was dealing with a handful of friends and family. And basically, she was sending them emails, and I was like, well, are they on Facebook? Do you think it'd be okay if you just basically put it on create a Facebook page for your business, and then tag them in the photo? So if you tag them on the photo, it shows up, one of these soccer moms probably have like 250 friends on average, I guess. That's what my wife has, so I'm guessing. But it's going to get a lot of exposure. So she's done this, and you can see, I think this one had like 7 likes, and we're not talking about a huge number of distribution here, but every time somebody likes it, it also potentially shows up on their feed. So you've got a whole lot of people that are exposed. She's doing thousands of dollars a month from other states. From Utah and California, people she doesn't even know. She's getting leads now.
Do you recommend the crash people do the whole Etsy thing?
I don't have a lot of experience with
I
that.
don't either. That's why.
But it's not a bad place to start. It's just like any of these other marketplaces. You might do better selling directly on your own. But if you've already got a list, if you already got a place where you can go where there's customers, that's never a bad thing. And you're not committed to staying there forever.
Yeah, if you make your own stuff, that's kind of what it's designed for.
Exactly.
Guys, this has been awesome. Thank you.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this week's session. Make sure and come back next week for another video, probably from the Emerging Tech Conference again. Now, if you like what I'm doing, I'd ask you to consider dilldomains.com the next time you buy a domain name or website hosting. Now, dilldomains.com is my GoDaddy reseller account, plain and simple. So if you like GoDaddy or you use GoDaddy, please consider using dilldomains.com instead. In other words, buy your GoDaddy stuff through my reseller account. Shouldn't cost you any more, but I'll make $1 or so every time you buy a domain name. That's it for today, so until next week, this is your host, Gary Leland, saying goodbye, and thanks for watching. Come back again and tell your friends about us.